Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today in this session we are going to discuss a topic which is really interesting if you are Azure DevOps resource and if you write a code to automate your infrastructure with Azure, whether you use ARM template, Azure CLI, PowerShell, or even if you use the Terraform. So as the title suggests, this particular tutorial is a beginner's guide to Terraform with Azure. So if you are new to Terraform and even with Azure, then this is the place where you can learn right from the beginning how do you set up the Terraform, how do you use the Terraform with Azure to provision your infrastructure, what are things you need in order to provision or to automate your entire infrastructure in Azure with the help of Terraform. This module will be dividing it to multiple sections and we'll try to cover each and every aspect what you need as a beginner or as a newcomer to understand the different topics of the Terraform with Azure. Just a quick introduction about myself. I'm Rakesh Suryavanshi. I own this channel. I'm Azure Certified Technical Architect. In this video, we have divided the section into 12 different parts, right from the installation of Terraform to some of the advanced configuration which you'll require, including CI/CD configuration, configuring the multiple resources, multiple instances of resources and things like that, so which is going to be helpful for you. So let's see how do you like to proceed ahead with that. This video is divided into 12 different sections, right from the installation of the Terraform to some of the complex setup of your Terraform infrastructure as code, wherein we are setting up the CI/CD pipeline, deploying multiple environments, deploying resource to multiple environments, some of the advanced Terraform commands and configuration which you might want to learn, things like that. And each section is configured to a timeline in your YouTube video, so you can anytime go and switch to from one section to another section using the timeline. And also we have the section highlighted at the bottom of your window, and so whichever section we are discussing, that will be highlighted at the bottom section of your. Before we start discussing this topic, please take a moment and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so that you get the notification for all my future videos. And also you can scroll to the playlist and the videos which are already been uploaded on my YouTube channel. So if you are interested to any of the past videos which I have uploaded, feel free to watch those videos. Don't forget to hit on a like, subscribe button. If you have any question, please write it down into the comment section. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Let's first of all understand what is Terraform and why do we need. So Terraform is a tool written in HashiCorp language which supports you to write your infrastructure as a code in any cloud providers which is available in the market, whether it's Azure, AWS, Google, Cloudflare. You just name it the cloud provider and you'll have the support available, or the support available for those cloud provider in Terraform. So using the Terraform, you basically use those providers and write your own infrastructure as a code. Now, question, why do we need the Terraform? Especially in Azure, because our topic is dedicated for Azure, so we'll check why do we need a Terraform when we go for infrastructure as automation in Azure. Whereas the Azure is supported by the ARM template, and the ARM template is a way to provision the infrastructure. So it's just a REST API But now the problem we got with the ARM template is just it's fire and forget. You don't have a mechanism to roll back any changes which has been which went wrong, things like that. Or let's say if you're using Azure PowerShell or CLI to provision any of the Azure resources on your Azure subscription, then basically in that case it just, let's say you run this Azure CLI, it's just fire and forget. If anything goes wrong, you don't have the backup option to roll it back the changes. Whereas in the Terraform, basically Terraform maintains the state of your changes. So when you publish a change or run a command to publish a change onto a target Azure or target cloud provider, in this case Azure, so basically a Terraform provisions a state or keeps a state of what has been run successfully, and when you run next time, let's say next time if you're trying to make an upgrade to what has been created last time, then it compares the state between the last deployment and then this deployment which is going on, and based on this state comparison it makes a decision what exactly it requires to perform now. Is it going to be a differential update, for example in this case a change which it requires to update, or it requires to create the entire infrastructure or delete something or destroy something like that, right? So it uses this state management within the Terraform itself. So state can be managed in a multiple way, which we will discuss it later on, but just to high level, this is one of the best feature I like. Second is all the ARM templates are written in JSON, so understanding and modifying the JSON when it grows up to thousands of lines. So I've seen the project wherein you create now the third and the last is you get the plan. For example, if I use the ARM template to provision the infrastructure, I have my CI/CD pipeline in place. So when you provision through ARM template, you ask your pipeline to execute and create a resource with the help of ARM template, but you do not have any option wherein somebody can validate what is going to be deployed, and based on those validation they make a decision whether they want to make those changes or not. Whereas in the Terraform you have multiple commands. You have a command for init and plan. So plan basically generates the plan between what has been run in the last time and what we are trying to run it now. So that difference is something which is generated as a plan, and that plan will showcase to you to reviewer that this is what the changes it's going to deploy, and then a reviewer can make a decision by looking at the plan, by reading the plan, and they can make a decision whether they want to accept the requested change onto their production environment or not. So these are the 3-4 major differences which I found, which are really helpful, which you can use it in your infrastructure as code, and these are kind of a key feature. We'll discuss through all of them in detail. Let's see. So first thing from our topic is Terraform installation. So let's install the Terraform on our machine. So currently for this demonstration I'm using a Mac OS or a Linux server, but the installation process for Terraform is fairly easy. You just need to download the desired version of a Terraform from the Terraform website, and you just need to, it's just either you download the exe or you download the zip file, unzip it, and then if you're using Windows, unzip it and then put it in your C drive or whichever place you want to put it. If you're using MacBook or Linux or any other system like that, then you can use the Brave command to download and install the Terraform. I'll show you how you can do that. Basically you can search for Terraform download in Google and then go to the link of the Terraform repository. Here you'll find the Terraform download link. For your operating system specific download link, follow through the link. For example, if you're using Windows, then go ahead and download the Windows bit, so it will allow you to download the exe. And then if you're using Mac OS like me, then go ahead and download this one as well. Now if your project is running to the older version of Terraform, then you can use the older version of Terraform link available here. Go to the Terraform link available here. Let's say I would like to go to the Terraform link available here, so you can go to the link, and then based on your desired operating system you can go ahead and download the link available. Now how do you set up a Terraform installation guide? You can find it here. Once you download the Terraform on your operating system, you can run the Terraform command like Terraform version, and if it displays the appropriate version, like in my case I'm getting a version as in 0.14.5, and the latest version is available as 0.14.7. so this is how you can verify whether you have the Terraform installed correctly on your operating system. That was pretty much about the Terraform installation. Next we are going to look at the project setup for our infrastructure. So for that I recommend you to download the VS Code on your machine. So if I go to the VS Code, this is what my projects look like. I'll close all the things here. So first of all, let's open a new folder. It is going to be a fresh new folder or new project which we are going to configure. So we are going to call beginner's guide to Terraform BGT, and let's open this. So now you can see that I have the empty folder here, and here is my project. I've started with it. Now what you can do is, now let's understand different parts of Terraform. So in Terraform we have variables .tf file, which includes all your Terraform variables. So you can declare the variables like that. So I have added an extension for Terraform. So you can, if you are new to Visual Studio Code, then you go to the extension and then search for Terraform, and then you should install the Terraform extensions. This one, HashiCorp expansion. This is what the extension I'm using. This will give you intelligence while writing a Terraform code. So I was discussing about the variable section. So variables is basically defined with the where is the place where you define all the Terraform variables. You need to have a tfvars either you need to have Terraform.tfvars. You need to have, if you want to take an output of any of your Terraform resource property, then usually you declares or the Terraform output file. You have the Terraform main.tf file where you define your logics, and usually I prefer to create a provider.tf file where I declare all my providers which I'm going to use within the Azure, within my Terraform code. So these are the 5 things you need to know So just to recap, your variables where you are going to keep all your variables name. For example, let's say I'll call it prefix, and then description. So basically you need to define a type and then description, what these variables is used for, things like that. You can also have variables with different types. For example, you can have a different type such as object or map, object, string, number, something like that. Or you can declare the variable as in like this, empty data temp. Okay, so when you declare a variable like this, it means it is a variable and it is the type is not defined. It means any type will be accepted on this particular variable, whether you pass integer, object, or any other type. Basically, one more thing on the variable is you can define a variables with a type, without type, or you can also say a default value. For example, let's say I have a variable called location, and I would like to say the default value of the location is east US, which is one of the reason of Azure data center. I can obviously provide the description, location of where your resource needs to provision in Azure, and then type is string, obviously. But these are the things which are basically optional. Now this is how you should define the variable. The Terraform tfvar file is a reserved file which you set the value of those variables which you have defined in any of your Terraform files. So it's not a necessary that I should create all of this file. This is just the differentiating factor I have defined here, so that you understand better that this is what the different things you need to know while writing a Terraform code. But I can still declare a variable in any files, like I can declare in output file, I can declare a variable in provider file as well. But this is what a level of segregation I would like to prefer while writing a Terraform code. So now let's say we have declared a location full value, the default value we have given, but and also the prefix we have declared. So what you can do is prefix, you can say prefix equals to, let's say, dev, or prefix you can say learning, and location you can say East US, though we have declared the location values like that. Okay, next you have got so we have discussed variable file where you declare a variable, terraform.tfvar file where you provide the value of those variables, right? Provider is the provider file is again optional file. It's not mandatory to create a provider file. You can put a provider in main.tf as well. So many example on Terraform website you'll find the provider they have added in the main.tf file itself. But again, I prefer to put my provider file in a separate file so that I know that this is where all my providers are declared. It's just totally optional. So provider, let's understand the provider now. So if I go to the Terraform registry.terraform website and search for provider, here you will see all the listed cloud providers which are available and supported by cloud is available here, and list is quite vast here. Now as the scope of this particular tutorial is Azure, so I'll go to the Azure and you'll see the information about the and downloads and when last time this was updated and things like that. Now if I go to the documentation here, you'll see how do you configure a provider. You'll see how do you connect to your Azure using the provider with the different credential mechanism. I've already created a video about this, but again we are going to configure the same thing here in this section as well. If you prefer a detailed video, I'll share the link in the description. This is how you define your providers. So if I go to the Azure ARM provider, you can copy that and then copy it here. You can see that, as I mentioned, you can declare a provider even in your main file as well. So this is my content of my main file. For example, let's say I would like to create a resource group, then this is how I can create a resource group. I'll come back to this point when we'll discuss that. But this is how you define your provider file, wherein you are saying that my Terraform code should connect to Azure ARM provider on my Azure subscription. So here we have not mentioned that which subscription it should connect to. So you might be thinking about, how do I know, how my Terraform will know that I need to connect to my project Azure subscription or my personal subscription or things like that, right? So how it will know? So here you provide the properties of your Azure ARM provider, that this is my subscription ID. For example, let's say subscription ID, and then you provide the client ID, and then secret client secret, and then tenant ID. So these are the property you can provide. Obviously these you obviously are going to declare a variable of these properties, and here things like that. So let's say variable client ID and others like. So you get it right. So this is how client secret, and then obviously I'll provide the description of those variables, but it's optional, so I'm just ignoring it just to save the time. Now just to use these variables, how do I use it? I use it like var dot subscription ID, which is the name of my variable, and then things like var dot, so I'll copy the rest of the things so that I don't need to hard code these values. Okay, so this is how you are defining that my Terraform should connect to Azure subscription using this service credential or service principal. So this is nothing, just a service principal which you create in your Azure subscription, right? So we have discussed about the provider as well, and as I said, you can anytime use it here as well, but you can't have the duplicate provider file, so you need to have at least one and only one of the unique provider type. You can have one provider for block for Azure, one for Google Cloud, one for any other cloud provider like Cloudflare or any other, but you can't have a two provider block for the same provider like Azure. You'll get an error, so you need to remember that. So you can declare it like this as well. Okay, I hope this is clear. Now the next thing is about our main.tf file, where we are going to write our main logic to provision the resource. Now to provision a resource in Terraform, you have two things. One is the resource block and one is the data source block, and the second one is the data source block. So the resource block basically helps you to define which resource you want to provision in your cloud. Okay, for example, I would like to create a resource group. So the pattern for defining a resource block is resource, which is a keyword. You can see I'm getting the IntelliSense. So as soon as I press tab, I get the which type of resource I would like to create. You can see that I'm getting a help here, which type of resource I would like to create. So I'll say Azure ARM, which is the type of provider which I want to use to provision resource. Then I'll press underscore, and then I can scroll it down. For example, let's say I would like to call it as a virtual network. So you can say virtual network or virtual machine or whatever it is. So you can, this is how. And then basically this is you are defining an object of a class. If you understand a .NET technology or any of the object oriented language, then you can correlate with this with a object type and then instance of the object, which obviously you are going to give a name. Any name is fine, either you call it test, example, name, xyz, whatever it is. I would like to give a logical name to my instances. For example, in this case I'll say virtual network, or I can say vnet, hub vnet example, okay, or simply vnet, so that I know that this is what the resource type I'm looking for. Similarly here I can say rg for resource group. And then once you define a resource type, you need to define some of the mandatory properties. So every resource has certain property which is required to fill in as a mandatory property, and some of them requires to be set as an optional. So if you do not fill in, so whatever is the default value, Terraform will fill in those default value on your behalf. Okay, you don't need to worry about that. For example, to create a resource group, I need to have a name defined for the resource group, and I can define the location of the resource group. I need to define the without this property I can't create a resource group. Similarly, on a virtual network, I can't create the resource without the virtual network property. We'll discuss how do you know what properties I need to know to create a specific resource. I'll tell you when we go into the detail. For now, I'll just comment it out. So this is one of the type file which shows how do you declare a variable. I hope this was helpful and you understand that. Next, you define the output file. So you can define the output file like output, and then if I press a double tab, output with the name of output, let's say rg location. I would like to get the location of my resource group. So in that, what you will see is the resource output will always accept the output as in value form. So it could be object type, string type, or numerical value, or any type which you want to return, right? So you can return it like which resource type value you want to return. For example, I would like to return this value. So your class name, your instance name, your resource type, basically your type of instance type, and then the property. For example, I would like to return the location property. Then I'll say Azure ARM resource group, and then RG, and then location. So this will give me the location of my resource group. So this is how you can return any available property for that specific resource from the Terraform. So this will print the output of that particular resource, which you can use it on the subsequent resource which you are provisioning it, right? Now so this is how you define your project structure in Terraform. So it's not necessary to create all this file. When you define a structure, you can create everything in a single file. Like for example, you can define your output variables, tfvar, everything you can declare in a single file. There is no rule of thumb here. The only reserved file we have it here is tfvar file. See, that is something which you need to give the name as is. It is a case sensitive, so you need to remember that you are giving the name as a tfvar files, right? If you want to change the value as a tf values. Okay, so this is how you declare the value of your Terraform project structure. Now, how do I run the Terraform code? So to run the Terraform code, if you are using Visual Studio Code, you can right click on a folder or a file and open new terminal. This is option number 1. You can go to the terminal, create new terminal, or if you are using Windows, then press Ctrl @, and if you are using Mac, then use Ctrl and then tilde button. Then you get the terminal open. So I'll open with this. Okay. Now if I go to the very first command I need to run is log into my Azure subscription, because I've declared all these variables but I haven't provided a variable values. So this option number 1, you can do that, but I don't want to share while having in call or checking in this code. I don't want to check in these service principal values as of now in my code, and I don't want to share with you guys, for example. So what I can do here is I would like to not to choose this option for now. We'll discuss it when what is the best case you are going to use that. So for now I have the Azure ARM empty block. I'll go to the command. I'll run Terraform. Before I do the Terraform init, first thing you need to do is you need to log into your Azure credential using Azure CLI. So make sure you have the Azure CLI installed on your system. For example, in my case, I have installed the Azure CLI on my MacBook and on my Windows as well. So you can test the Azure CLI with help, and you should get the information about AZ login. I'll use the command AZ login. So once I connect to AZ login, it will ask me I'm connected to my Azure subscription and the subscription detail is been given. Now even though I'm not providing any service principal details to my Terraform code, as in this session when I'm running the Terraform command, I'm logged into Azure terminal using my Azure CLI command. So I should be able to run the Terraform, and Terraform should be able to connect to Azure subscription by grabbing the information of my Azure credential using the Azure CLI. Okay, so now if you run the Terraform init, so this is the very first command you need to run. So what Terraform init means and what it will do, basically init will find and download the providers which you have requested to use in your Terraform code. So in this case we have requested Terraform to use the Azure ARM provider. So in this case, when we run the Terraform init command, basically it went and download the Azure ARM provider. So if you see, you have got now an additional folder on your, which is starting with .terraform. This is a folder basically which you have started here. Okay, which is downloaded when you run the Terraform init command, and that is the exe, and this folder contains a exe for your Terraform provider. So when now you are going to run the further commands, Terraform commands related to this provider, this exe will help you to run those commands. For example, now next command we are going to run? Terraform plan, basically. So in the plan, it will evaluate the plan. Basically, it will validate my code and check what are the different input and input parameters. So what is the code look like and what all input parameters are expected to have values. So for example, in my case, I have a variable called temp, which I did not specify any values. For example, if you look at our variable section, in the variable section we have a prefix block, we have a temp block, and we have a location block. Prefix has got prefix has got the type but doesn't got any value. Temp got nothing, and location has got the value. Now it is asking for temp, so I can provide any value. So let's call any value, and then it's not asking me for value for prefix. The reason for that is because the value for prefix and location is defined in the Terraform var. So this plan has already know that, okay, some of the values of your variables you have already declared in the Terraform variable, and some of them which you have not declared you need to specify while running the Terraform plan command. So now, as you can see, my plan is run successfully, and once the plan is run successfully, you can see that this is what I am getting it. So the plus signs means that this is the resource which it is going to create in my Azure subscription. Okay, and this is what the changes looks like, and this is one of the output will look like. So output location, which is the West Europe, it's declaring, right? You might be wondering why West Europe, because in the parameters I have declared East US, whereas in the resource group is created with West Europe, and that is also West Europe. The reason for that is, even though we have declared this parameter, we have set the value of the parameter, but we have not used those parameters here in the resources. So I can use the parameters like this. So let's say call it location, and now if I'm going to run the plan, let's comment out the temp variables. We are not using this particular variable. So now if I'm going to run the plan, then it should tell me that the resource group will be created in East US instead of West Europe. As you can see that it's trying to create a resource in East US, and the resource location will be returned as an output after creation of a resource. So this is how you can run the plan, right? Now, to create a resource, it has also told you that you can create a resource like this, Terraform apply. So once I'm going to run the Terraform apply, there will be a last file which comes into a picture, Terraform state file. So at the moment you can see that there is no state file which we have created. So we haven't created any state file, tf state file. Now as soon as I'm going to run the Terraform apply command, so it will basically create a resource and it will create a state file as well. So now you can see that as soon as I hit the apply button, it has created a state file. State file is a file, a JSON file basically, which will have the state of your resources which you have provisioned. Now it is asking for my approval. So the next time when you run the Terraform command, we'll see if we can run the Terraform command with the auto approval so that it doesn't require any user intervention while running the apply command. So now you can see that the resource group is created and we have the resource group available. So if I open the Terraform state file, it says that this is what your state file look like. These are your resources. So I just got one resource which is of type resource group, and the name of instance name of that resource group which I have specified in my code block, which is RG, and this is the detail of your resource group, like your location, your ID of your resource group, and things like that. I don't have any tags, so it's set the tag value as null because, as I said, that was optional, so it keep the value as an optional. So now if I go to the portal.azure.com and verify that particular resource, let's see if we can. So we should have a resource group called example resources. So this is what the resource group we have just now created, and this is how we have successfully created a very first resource in Azure. Now you might be wondering that, okay, what if I would like to modify the resource? So let's say we have got the another variable. I'll modify the variable as an, and then I'll call the default value as a map. So map is just a key value pair, like in .NET you have a dictionary. So I'll call it the environment equals to dev, and then cost center equal to some 50 something like that. I can go ahead, and I don't need to declare it here in the tfvar because I've already declared it over there. So I can use the tags, and then as soon as I specify the tags, I can use tags like this. Now if I run the Terraform plan command again, this time your Terraform command will, okay, just a moment, yep, I missed the S at the end. This should validate, compare. Now what Terraform will do is Terraform plan will compare my current state file with the changes which I am trying to deploy, and then it will tell me, okay, as per the current state file, this is what the update it should perform. And this is, you can see that with the help of tilde operator, it means that this is the resource type, and within this resource, this is what the resource property which is going to be modified in the next subsequent run. And you can see that I do not have any tag on my resource group. So now if I'm going to run Terraform apply, this time I'll use the auto run command. So you can run the auto run command using auto and then approve, something like that. So now this time it won't ask me for my permission to run the and provision the resource. This is how you can run the Terraform apply command with user interaction. And the command has run successfully. I have got the resource provision successfully. Let's see we have received the update here. This might take a slight bit of time. You can see that we have got the tags to our resource group. So this concludes our very first demo when we have created a project, Terraform project. We understood the different component of Terraform files like variables, tfvar, providers, output and main file, and we have successfully created a smallest possible resource in Azure, which is a resource group. I hope this was helpful. In the next session, we are going to discuss the next topic, which is there in the slide.